Hey folks, I am here with another collaboration today with my buddy Kropcio from Kropcio Games. If you don't know, Kropcio was the content creator winner of last year's Hell Hades free-to-play challenge for 2024. Krop, welcome back to the channel, man. It's good to see you.
Greetings, welcome. Yeah, it's fine to back on your channel. It's a big pleasure to meet you again. And yeah, I'm excited we'll be talking about very important stuff, which is coming.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, awesome. If you don't know, this is Krop's channel here. You should come check it out. He is a very good free-to-play player. He makes regular content on his free-to-play account from last year. So, Krop, you won last year's challenge. You beat me, buddy. You took me down to the wire and held me off on the last day. So you and I finished 1 and 2, which I think was very well done. But the difference is I stopped playing that account immediately. I gave it away to a viewer, and then you've kept playing your account for the rest of the year. And you're still making videos on that specific account, correct?
Yes, that's 100% correct. I'm still 100% free to play. I haven't spent anything, so all you see on my channel is my generally grind, my spend time, and ideas, thoughts, how to solve different puzzle that we have in this game. Yeah, so I think I documented most of the time, most of the issues that I solved.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see good shard pulling sessions also there, because that's the part of the game. So
yeah, absolutely.
You need to check your luck. So
all right, well, if you are interested in seeing what a really well played free to play account looks like after 1 year, because we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary in just a couple of days here, you can come check out this video of Krop's my 6-star roster after 1 year. That would be really helpful. Or go ahead and go back and watch the series, because there was a lot of change. There were a lot of changes in the game this year, but I think the free to play mentality doesn't really change. It doesn't matter what you're presented with. The approach is always going to be the same. So in today's video, what Krop and I are going to do is we're going to discuss how to dominate the Hell Hades free to play challenge in 2025. What are the philosophies, the strategies that you can use to basically succeed right out of the gate? We're also going to talk about some of the differences between a challenge account and a regular free-to-play account, especially if you're going to take your challenge account, turn it into a regular account moving forward. So that's what we're going to get into today. I am Colrend. He is Kropcio. Let's get started. All right, Krop. So let's just start at the beginning. The free-to-play challenge from last year had certain rule sets. We don't know what the rule sets are going to be this year. We literally don't know. Hell Hades hasn't announced the final rules. Last year, we know we had, I think it was 8 teams. There are only going to be 2 teams this year. But last year, we weren't allowed to use legendaries. This year, maybe. We don't know if we're going to be allowed to use legendaries. So there are different variables up in the air. Are there any things, like any specific things that you think are happening this year, maybe, that have to factor into how you start off your challenge account versus how we started it off last year?
Yeah, so I've got a few ideas how to start, but generally a lot of depends on the rules, right? Can we use legendaries? Can we use only legendaries that that are guaranteed, like fusions, like Arbiter, etc., right? So this is changing a lot, because that's the approach here will be if we are allowed to use legendaries from shards, so then your strategy how to manage your shards will be totally different than we had last year, because last year we were not able to use legendaries, so any epic was like legendary level, because that's the best what you can get. So we are pulling ancient shards like crazy from the beginning.
Right.
So if this rule will change, then we will need to probably reconsider our strategies.
Yeah. So one of the things that you just said there was, pulling ancient shards. right? And the strategy towards ancient shards. Because of legendaries being disallowed, it was less important maybe to really focus on getting legendaries, and just if you got a good epic, that champion probably moved into a very high priority on your list. So just a quick reminder, last year when the game launched, I think, what was it? It was Adolin. Chronicler Adolin was the free login reward champion. And is that correct? Was that during the beginning of the year? Do you remember?
No, Ratalos, Breakmaster.
Rathalos, that's who it was. You're right. Yeah, Adolin was after that. So it was Rathalos.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that happens is, like, if you have a free login legendary and you can use that legendary, you're going to focus your roster around that legendary. And so the promo code that you start off with, like, what epic are you going to pair with this legendary? That was a big consideration. And then after that is, which epics did you chase and how did you manage your shards, like you said, based on the fact that you needed as many epics as possible. So who did you pick as your promo code champion last year?
Yeah, so my setup was I think very not so pretty straightforward, because I was checking my luck, pulling my ancient shards before I choose the promo code, because if I get something,
yeah,
which will change my strategy, then I can change choosing different promo code, right? But this is only like for first 2 days. I'm not sure how long this period of time.
Because the first promo code, I think, only lasts 48 or 72 hours. But so you pulled like the first 4 or 5 shards that you got in order to see if you got an epic that you wanted to build off of. Okay. Did you get anybody?
Yeah, Mordecai.
You got Mordecai. Okay, well, that's huge.
Yeah, and for Latalos, perfect combo.
Right.
So we got,
and he's attack. He's a promo code champion, so you didn't have to waste your promo code on Mordecai. Yeah. Let me see if I can actually find him here. There he is.
So after that, I choose as a promo code Deacon.
You took the Deacon. There you go. That's why you were turbocharged, because I've said this before. I think Deacon is the best epic to have on day one in the entire game. But unfortunately, that promo code, as I understand it, is gone. Superpowers is no longer active. And so we can't get Deacon this year unless we pull him from a shard.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So you had Mordecai and Deacon basically on day 2.
And Atel as a starter champion.
Yeah,
which means I've got 3 champions from the Sacred Order faction, which means my faction wars for this particular faction is like breeze.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something that I think we both tried to do, which was, people may not know this, but during the first 7 days of a new account, all of the faction crypts are open. So you can actually go back into the same faction crypt every day for 7 days. And so if you have a starter champion and a good support in a faction, you're likely to get past that first boss and start going towards that second boss very, very quickly. And you can farm those epic resources from faction crypts that are going to help you, just forge better gear early in the game if you can get these purple rewards. And even if you can get to like stage 13, you can start to get some legendary materials up here.
I reached stage 13.
Start 13, yeah, because you had Mordecai, Deacon, and Athel, so you must have crushed this this faction crypt. And then you had Rathalos for Banner Lords, so that was probably pretty good as well. And did you just focus in on those 4 champions? Did you just build those 4 champions out, or were there other champions that got into the mix?
So the first week you're getting your first sacred, right? From a campaign.
Yes.
So I was my first pulling session for this shard. So I've got Toragi the Frog.
Nice. Okay.
Which means generally I was set from the beginning. So I had like 5 champions to build from the beginning. That so probably I didn't thinking about pulling more shards, so I was starting saving all my gems. I was not buying packs to pull more ancient shards, to check what I could get to change my strategy. So so I had like work for next 4 or 5 weeks to build those 5 champions. If you are assuming that you can build and train 6-star champion like 5 days each, right, or something like that. That's the average from my
so in that 5, your starting 5 was Deacon Armstrong and Mordecai as your supports. Taragi is your tank. And then you have your 2 damage dealers in Rathalos and Athel. Athel also brings that A1 weaken, which is really great at 100%. She's the only rare in the game that has a 100% weaken on an A1. In fact, I don't think there's an epic that has a 100% weaken on the A1. So, you know, when we're picking starter champions, a lot of people lean towards Kale, and Kale is awesome because of the poisons, and he scales pretty well in Clan Boss. But Athel, like, she's going to be your best weekend champion for a very long time. You pair that with the Deacon Armstrong, who's got the decreased defense, and then the Mordecai, who's got the increased attack. You've got everything that you basically need, other than a reviver or a cleanser. Is that who you were looking for next after your starting 5, or were you just kind of seeing who you got?
So to just finalize this composition that you mentioned, so Mordecai also brings HP burn,
right?
And if you take a look to the Rathalos passive, so this will enable more damage from him.
Yes.
So that was even better, right? This composition was just perfect.
Yes, so crazy amounts of damage there. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was the setup. So Entoragi just for survivability and ally protection. So generally, I had a clan boss team from the day 7, like
you get the decreased attack, you get the additional poisons, which means you're not going to miss the Kale as much on clan boss. And I bet your clan boss team did quite well after the first month.
Yeah, quite. I think what was brutal. I think brutal. We finished at the brutal, maybe. But the clan boss depends on the gear later, right?
Because, yes, of course. Yeah.
Better gear you can push further.
And speaking of gear, where did you focus on trying to get your gear? I know there are several different locations early game where you can focus. What was your focus?
Oh, that's another interesting topic. So mostly faction wars. So during this first 5 weeks, when I was building all my 5 champions, so Rathalos, Aethel was the first, of course, to campaign farm. Toragi, Deacon, and Mordecai. So I had like 5 weeks. So what I was doing, I was building food, so chicken champions, but I was trying to choose it wisely, and I was preparing my food for the factions that will be open next day. Right. So if you go to the faction wars, so you see what's coming next day after that, etc. Right.
Yep.
So you can start preparing food for the next day. And I had one set of 3-star shield set. So most of the time, what is suggested, just sell off your 3-star gear, right?
Right.
I'm not convinced that this is the perfect solution because it's cheaper to remove 3-star gear. Because removing like 5-star or 6-star, it will cost you a lot of silver.
Yes.
But removing 3-star, it's very cheap, so you can afford that. Even to just removing all 6 pieces, it will be like 100,000 of silver, which is not so expensive, right?
So you had one good shield set that was 3 stars. Yeah. And then you would plus swap that for every faction group
with a health set, right? So you got 6 pieces to build every champion. So I was choosing HP based champion for each faction, and I was gearing him at the day. So my whole team was generally so beefy with those big shields, so I was I was able to like crush few next stages, right, of this particular faction.
Right.
And I was doing this for like a month or so, every day. So and because of that, I was getting so much forge materials for perception, for
Resilience. Yep.
what's the name? Resilience, right? So I was generally I had so many speed boots in the first month of for perception that I could just gear everybody because all of them. I mean, Deacon, Mordecai, they are debuffers, right? So they need accuracy. So speed boots, perfect fit for them. Yeah, and that was my execution of this plan.
So I did a video on that. It's a video that still does fairly well and gets views, but I did a video on that exact faction crypt approach, which is that what you want to do is, like you said, look at what faction crypts are coming and use your chicken champions, like the champions that you're going to promote your Deacon Armstrongs and your Troggy the Frogs with. And those might be just uncommons. You might get them from here in the market. You know, you look here, you might get them from mystery shards. But if you say, you know, all right, if I've got Sacred Order or whatever, let's say I've got orcs coming in 3 days, I would go to my champion roster and I would just say, let me look at orcs and see what uncommons I have, you know, and be like, okay, so I'm going to save these two. I'm not going to use these two as chickens until after that faction crypt is passed. And I want to use them as preferably 5-star chickens, right? Or sometimes 4-star chickens. So I want to get them to level 30 or level 40. And then, like you said, throw a cheap, you know, set of gear on them, maybe some 3-star gear or even some 2-star gear that you have lying around. And that's going to allow you to push that faction crypt. And then as soon as the faction crypt is done, you just go ahead and convert all those chickens, you know, and promote somebody with them. Unless sometimes the faction comes back around in like 48 hours, you know, and then maybe you would hold on to it. So that's absolutely a great strategy. And I personally feel like you get such good gear here. Like you get so much of this stuff, even when you're getting like the 3 and 4-star stuff.
Yeah.
You get so much of it that it becomes super valuable, not necessarily always for your best champions, although if you can get up to the 5 and 6-star gear, you know, it will. But it just allows you to gear without needing to farm dungeons too much. And perception is so good for like 80% of champions. You know, so you could do a little bit of farming in other places if you wanted, but I think this is the best gearing strategy for an early free to play account by far. I will say this: did you farm anywhere else, or was that basically where you stayed because you just happened to get the pieces that you needed?
So generally, farming dungeons, it's totally waste of energy at the beginning. That's what I'm thinking.
I agree.
Like speed boots, right? So we can go to campaign and farm the speed boots there. If you are ready on the hard brutal nightmare, so it depends on the level. You can get those speeds set here. It doesn't have to be like rare, epic or something. It could be, you know, common and common. But
right.
If it's good, that's enough.
So perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what I would say. If you needed 5-star speed boots, just come here and farm stage 6 of brutal as many times as you can until you get a few copies. And if they're common, but they're still going to have the same speed. And speed is so key early on because your progression is really going to be tied to, I think, you know, you have the three big stats, right? 1 is speed for everybody, 2 is accuracy for your debuffers, and 3 is the crit rate for your damage dealer. Can you get enough crit rate and then start boosting crit damage on your damage dealers like Rathalos and Athel? But honestly, everybody needs accuracy. Even your Athel needs accuracy because if you want to land that weaken, which you absolutely want to land that weaken, you need to have accuracy. And that's where that perception gear comes in. So, okay, so you've got your gear sorted. You've got your starting 5 sorted. Were there particular areas we said, dungeons weren't all that important, but here's the thing: for the Hell Hades challenge, you got points based on how high you pushed at, for each month. Like at the end of 30 days, they gave you points based on your highest progression, and then at 60 days and at 90 days, they did the same thing, and that was true for all of the dungeons, the clan boss, Hydra, a whole bunch of different things, faction crypts, all that stuff. So, did you basically ignore those benchmarks until like the last 2 or 3 days of each month, or were you constantly pushing throughout the month? Or if you were pushing like only some areas, were there specific areas that you focused on?
If you are following the Arbiter missions, so they will force you to do some of the stuff.
Yeah.
So you need to farm Ice Golem, Dragon, Spider, because one of generally big power spike for your account is getting Arbiter on the account.
Right.
So doing this possibly as fast as possible. So it was a great move, right? Having this revive, full revive, heal, turn meter boost, increase attack. So crazy champion. So and to get her, you need to complete a lot of dungeons. I'm not sure on which level, probably 10 or maybe a little bit higher. But then, so at least you will need to do some progress there.
But so here I have a question, because I didn't come. I did focus on my Arbiter missions. Absolutely, I think that's critically important, because not only does it help you kind of have a pathway, through the game, it naturally brings you through a path of progression. But then you also get great rewards, right? There are actually rewards that you get from each Arbiter mission, like energy and gems and glyphs and stuff and even shards that you can use to then grow your account. But obviously, in 90 days, if you're doing the HH challenge, you're probably not going to get your Arbiter in 90 days. I'm assuming you didn't. I certainly didn't. I was probably about 3/4 of the way, I think, to Arbiter in 90 days. But it probably would have taken me another 30 or 40 days at least to get my Arbiter.
As I remember, I've got Arbiter during this 90 days.
You did?
Even about 65 days.
Okay, wow. You did it very, very fast then.
Yeah.
I know there were a few people in the challenge that got their Arbiter, but I thought there were only like 2. I didn't realize you were one of them. I know you can do it fast. I know that it can be done fast. There was somebody in the community last year who did it in, I think it was in 34 days. They got their Arbiter. That's the fastest I've ever heard of. But so do you feel like that's a good thing to focus on, trying to get that Arbiter in 90 days?
Yeah, there is a lot of rewards along the way when you are going for Arbiter, and that helped me a lot. I think it's just getting those shards, those gems. You need to also consider and watch what's going on in the raid. So there was already at that time, as I remember, fusion for Ancora.
Yes.
Right, so from the Night Refs faction, right? So, and I managed to get him. Her, sorry.
I missed her by 5 fragments. I remember this one distinctly. I had COVID at the time, and I just like spaced out, and an event ended, and I didn't realize it, and I kept doing the fusion, and then like 4 days later, I realized I couldn't complete it, and I stopped. But so I this was painful for me. But I know you got not just Ancora. Didn't you also get Armand's? Yeah. So then it was like Ancora first. Yeah. And they were incredibly powerful, and then Armand's afterwards.
Yeah. So generally, our progress is in this challenge also depends what's going on in the raid. So you need to have your strategy and plan, but you need to be a little bit flexible and adapt to the current situation, what's going on, and generally decide what should you do. Should I go for this fusion, or maybe only for the epic, right? If this is like standard fusion that you will get some epics. there is a lot of factors and that can change that you cannot even think and take to your plan from the beginning. So yeah, the biggest advice here will be just to stay vigilant and
Yeah,
watch what's going on.
I think one of the things that most free-to-play players at some point realize is that when you're trying to get the most value out of your resources, you start by creating rules for yourself. You know, you're like, okay, I only pull my void shards during 2x void events. Okay, I only do, you know, Phantom Shogun during CVC because there's never a tournament for it. So if I'm going to do that, I need to do it during a CVC to get a double dip. And like you make all these rules for yourself. And then what you realize is later on that the rules are just there as guides to help you remember that the real goal is to get as much value for your resources as possible. But because things are constantly changing in the game, you can't just let your rules dictate what you do. You have to be flexible enough and adaptable enough to occasionally even break a rule when raid comes at you with something strange. You know, so for instance, last year during the free-to-play challenge, that was when the Monster Hunter collaboration was going on. And there was I think it was a champion training tournament that rewarded Nair Gigante Archer.
Yeah, and I remember that.
Yeah, and I was hovering close to this. I was just tracking it because it's a 4-day tournament, and I did not expect to be in play. And then when I realized I could do it, I blew all of my resources. I went for every last gem I could to get all the energy that I needed to make sure I locked that down in the last couple of hours. And that absolutely transformed my account for the next 45 days. Like, and moving forward, it would have as well, because she was such a powerful champion. And I was the only one in the challenge to be able to get him and get her. And that was a lot of luck, but it was also simultaneously me being, you know, flexible and saying, I'm saving resources for an opportunity. So now I have to acknowledge when that opportunity happens and go for it as hard as I can. And since I missed Ancora and I didn't get Armands, the only way I was going to continue to compete was to get an equally valuable champion somewhere else. And that's what Nair Gigante Archer did for me.
Yeah, so Nair Gigante Archer is like bigger than Armands and Ancora together.
I don't know about that. I don't know. But yeah, but incredibly powerful for Hydra specifically. But also just and here's another thing that I think happened once I got her was I was playing with a smaller roster than most players. I think you had a bigger roster. I think everybody had bigger rosters than I did. I basically only developed, I think, maybe 8 6-stars in the 90 days, something like that, maybe 9. Mm-hmm. And what I did instead was lean into making each of them as incredibly powerful as I could. And so I really took Nair Gigante Archer and I kind of did crazy stuff with her. And one of the reasons I was able to do that is because I started pursuing all of the tournaments where I could win Relentless gear because I had this champion. I would not have done this if I didn't have this champion. And so when I built her, I was able to get her into a very good set of Relentless gear. I have her in Relentless on my main account as well, but it wasn't this set. This was my, we're talking about my other account. But this champion's incredibly powerful in a Relentless set. And then I was able to get a Blood Shield ring on her and put her in emergency heal. And she just became so impossible to kill that she soloed most of Doom Tower for me every single rotation. I was able to clear normal Doom Tower basically with just Nair Gigante Archer. I didn't really need another champion to do the waves in normal. And so I think, like you're saying, you have a plan in place, but you have to be flexible enough to be able to judge what the opportunities are and where the value is, whether that's a fusion or a guaranteed champion or where you want to pull your shards. If you can double dip, triple dip, if there's a progressive that's worth chasing, which usually there is not. But, if something comes along that's a little bit unusual, can you adapt quickly enough to take advantage of? So, all right. So now I wanted to talk to you about a couple of other things because you got your Arbiter. We talked about Arbiter a little bit. But what about Arena? I know you did very well in Arena. You did better than I did in Arena, I think. what was your focus for Arena? When did you start focusing on it? How did you approach it? And what success or, lack of thereof did you get from Arena?
Yeah, so Arena is just master for Arbiter, so you need to get this first level 10, right? One of the bonuses to get her, so yeah, so generally you're forced to do the Arena. But the bonuses also at the beginning they are not so great because if you're focusing on one stat only, like accuracy for all your magic champions, for example. So you need to wisely choose which upgrade you will pick, because depends on your roster, right? So
right.
Depends what you have to boost those champs a little bit. So from the beginning, yeah, having Deacon, right, with Aetol, Ratalos, so I know it's easy because I was blowing everything.
Yeah.
If you got good enough speed with Deacon and 2-meter boost, etc., so that was easy. But later, after I got Armans, so that was like a breeze, right? So I was sometimes was reaching platinum tier in the Arena.
Yeah.
So I remember that. So
that
I was doing a lot of Arena.
That's crazy. And just one of these things, every once in a while I'll do a video. I did a video recently where a few commenters were really angry, and they're like, it's crazy to try to do fusions in the first 6 months of an account. I think I did a collab with Boozer just yesterday where we were saying, in the first 3 to 6 months of an account, you should be doing fusion. And a few commenters were like, you can't do it. And that's ridiculous. They don't give you enough resources. And now we're talking about how in this video, like if you focus and if you do your research and you know what's going on, you can do a fusion in the first 40 or 45 days. Like you got Ancora done before the 45-day mark, I think. I'm pretty sure, at least in the first 60 days. So the first 90 days is certainly a reasonable time frame for this challenge for, people getting at least one fusion done. And then in addition to that, you're talking about like, can you get to gold 4 or 5 quickly? And you're talking about hitting platinum in Classic Arena on a fully free to play account with no like legendaries that you can pull from shards. The only legendaries you could use were all the free ones that you could get. And because Armand's hit at the right time and because you had Deacon, you were able to actually push Platinum Arena as a free to play player in the first 90 days of an account. So when people say things are not possible, I'm like, yeah, you're wrong. You're wrong. They are possible. Are they difficult? Sure. Does it take knowledge and dedication and all that stuff? Absolutely. Does it even take a little bit of luck sometimes, like an Armand's fusion? Maybe. But it's possible, and maybe even more possible than we ever really thought before this last free to play challenge. Because I think if you had asked me, could you push platinum in 90 days? I would have said, hell no. But now we're talking about, you weren't the only one. I know there were like 2 or 3 other content creators who were in Platinum Arena within 60 days of launch, launching a new account, which is insane. Were you surprised? Were you surprised at how much you were able to do with a new account last year?
Yes, I think yes, but I would point also another thing that I was saying that I need to be checking what's going on, right? So at that time, there was also Forge Pass.
Right.
So free-to-play players also can participate, but they will get only the first row of their rewards, right? And it was for a Slayer.
Yeah, it was a Slayer set, right? Which we all threw on Rathalos right away, I think.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I was so lucky that I think I'm still using Rathalos with this build till now. That's how good this
you just got really good
gear was. So that's the main reason, because it depends. If your damage dealer is hitting really hard, I mean really hard, you can just blow enemy defenses, just brute force, right?
Right.
If you additionally like boost him with increase attack, HP burn for Rotalos, decrease defense, etc., so it will be even easier, right?
So your team in arena at that point, was it Armands into Arbiter into Deacon into Rathalos, or did you still have Mordecai to set up the HP burns?
Oh, so we can say about two phases. So before Armans and after Armans. So
Right.
generally, when Armans was in play, so generally whatever I will put, I was winning because permanent control is and shipping other champions, removing their buffs. So it's too powerful. Before that, yeah, it was Deacon. If I remember correctly, for sure, Armans, Mordecai, and Arbiter. So that's the best combo, as I remember. It was because I didn't have. I got Toraki and who else? That's all.
So you
Aethel,
had
right. So
Athel, and then you were doing double nuke with Athel and Rathalos.
at the beginning, probably yes.
Yeah.
But later, Aethel just fell off.
Right.
Naturally, because of the damage that Rotalos was bringing.
So again, out of your first 5 champions, you had these 4, and these are giving you 2 turn meter fills, an increased attack, because Mordecai also gives a turn meter fill, increased attack, decreased defense, and then double nuke, right? So let me just see. Does Mordecai's HP burn give the increased attack, or is it a different skill? I forget. It's been a while.
Increase attack with HP burn. So this turn meter fill is on the.
It's on the
on
the A2, right? So that's this, yeah. So you get the increased attack with the HP burn, which would activate Rathalos' passive. So that's going to get you into gold really fast. Like you're going to get up there, and then late in the account's life, you replaced probably Athel with Armands, right? And then you had Deacon, Mordecai, Armands, and Rathalos, and then finally you probably replaced Mordecai with Arbiter, I'm assuming.
Yeah, something like that. But generally, having Armans on the account, so it was so easy to win those fights, especially because I got 2 copies of Armans.
Oh, jeez.
While doing the fusion for Armans, I was using primal shards because, you know, they're giving some points for Summon Rush.
Right.
And I pulled Armans, second copy. I mean, before I fuse him, I just pulled him from the shard, but I couldn't use him, so he was waiting in the vault till
for after the 90 days.
Yeah, after 90 days. And at the same time, I pulled, one very champion that I probably, it will be like sin to not mention this one. So Suzerain Keton.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
During the same, but I also couldn't use him during the challenge. But later, after the challenge, he was so impactful for my account because all his skills are AOE. I also got some leftover Slayer set pieces, so he was running like in 8 or 7 piece Slayer. So together with Ratalos, they were crushing everything.
Yeah, he's a very good old school champion for a lot of reasons. I like his A2. It's 100% chance of a weaken. It's weirdly like a 75%, I think 75% chance of decreased defense, which is like funky. They should just make this 100 and 100. But okay, so one of the things I think that over the past year, at least, I've really solidified, and I've probably said this a couple of times on the channel, is when it comes to success as a free-to-play player, or really any raid player, I think there are 4 major contributing factors, and there are probably more, but there are 4 that we kind of focus on, right? The first is your time in game. How much time are you actually spending in game? The second one is skill or knowledge, like what do you as a player bring to the table, right? The third is luck, because luck is part of it, the shard pulls that you pull and all that. And then the fourth one is money, right? So those are the 4 things that can like grow an account. And if you're free to play, you're basically taking one of those away. And if you're spending, you use the money to try to boost the luck and reduce the time, right? But the one thing that doesn't change ever is skill. Skill is the multiplier. Like whatever you get, the more skilled you are, the more you're going to get out of the resources that you have, right? And that's always going to be true whether you spend a little time in the game, a lot of time in the game, whether you spend no money or a lot of money. But I think that one of the reactions that I got last year, especially for my particular finish, was that you were so incredibly lucky, Colred, to pull Nair Gigante Archer. And that's why you finished at the top. And it almost doesn't count. It doesn't count as a free to play win because that was too much luck. And, you know, we're talking about you finishing in first place, you know, and it's like all of the things that you did were skill and you spent a lot of time in the game, but you got lucky. You pulled a Mordecai early that allowed you to pick Deacon. You got your Taragi early that allowed you to build a good 5 champion team. And then, you know, you were able to complete those fusions. That's skill, but the luck of getting that second Armands and what you can do with it later on, and all sorts. So I guess, you know, help me figure out or respond to the viewers. How much do you feel like luck really impacts the ability of an account to grow and what a player can do with it, say, in a challenge like the Hell Hades free to play challenge where there's only 90 days? Do you think luck has a major impact? Is it sort of like a wash, or do you think it doesn't have much impact at all?
Yeah, this is gacha game. So you are getting your champions from the big pool. So whoever will join your account, right? So that's that's your resource. That you can think about the resource that you need to use and try to progress. So generally, luck is a very big factor in this game. So what we can do to reduce the RNG is to give our account chance to have more shots, right? On those lucky shot.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why we are holding our shards and waiting for 2x's, waiting for fusions to complete those stuff. So we are not pulling shards at, you know, random stuff. But that's not only true, because I was pulling my shards for some particular progressive chances, right? But I knew that I need that champion. Sometimes I missed. I was trying to get later Geomancer, Seer, etc. So on few I managed to do that, on few or not. But I was calculating if I'm in danger to like miss next fusion. Right? Or something. So I was calculating that, right? So I need to be sure that I'm ready for the next fusion, and I can like have 50 spare ancient shards that I can just give a try and see who will join the account. Yeah. So luck is big factor in this, but you need to give your account a chance, right? At the right time.
So I do think the thing that you said there is like, if you want to take shots at something like a progressive, you want to make sure that that doesn't impact your ability to complete the next fusion, which is a guaranteed value, right? Like the idea is to reduce the amount of RNG. You can't eliminate it. There's always going to be luck that's going to happen. But the two things that you want to do is reduce the negative impact of RNG by investing in 2x events, or if you're going to take shots out of it, not messing up your fusions, because fusions are guaranteed value for free-to-play players. I have discussions like this sometimes with my viewers who don't participate in fusions. They don't feel like they want either that it's valuable or that they want to because it's, you know, they think it's too hard as a free-to-play player. And I think for me, I'm not recommending that free-to-play players invest in every single fusion, but you should, in, say, the first year of your account, in my mind, at least take a shot at 3 or 4 fusions. Save up your shards, save up your resources, and pick the 3 or 4 best fusions that you can to add value to your roster, because it's a guaranteed value, and that reduces that RNG. If you take all those shards that you do during a summon rush or a champion chase for a fusion, and you just pull them instead whenever, you're going to end up with less value in the long run. So I think that's really important. And then the second thing I think is whatever your luck happens to be, you need to multiply it by working hard, right? Like by being in the game a lot of hours and doing your best, like what you were doing with the faction crypts and how you were building your gear and trying to get extra resources and extra value for the resources that you did spend. That's why you kept staying ahead of me, right? Like that's one of the reasons why, because I was doing the same thing, but I wasn't gaining on you because you were doing the same thing. And you were able to get your Arbiter before I was, and you were able to complete some fusions that I wasn't. And ultimately, that was probably the difference between you and I, because I think you beat me by something like 700 or 800 points out of about 12,000. So we're talking about a difference of maybe, I don't know, like 5 or 6%. But that 5 or 6% probably came down to you leveraging your resources a little bit better than I did, because ultimately, you know, the luck was probably roughly equal. Like you had really good luck with epics early on and I didn't, but then I lucked into Nair Gigante Archer, which nobody else did, you know, and it's like,
Yeah,
you can't control those things, but you can control the effort and, you know, the discipline.
yeah. So you mentioned that you finished after those 90 days with like 8 or 9 6-star champions, right?
Yeah, something like that.
I remember I was getting close to like 15.
Right.
So I was just producing 6-star champions like crazy.
Yeah.
And the points that I got just using those 6-star champions just was faction wars, because with 6-star champions you can do more progress there.
Yeah.
But I have another tip for faction wars, back to that. And you can also progress in Cintranos.
Yes.
With those.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of points from Cintranos. So just clearing one stage is giving you pretty huge amount of points. And after the reset with another rotation, you will get another points, clearing another rotation. So it's not only once, because you can do it again. So I remember that I get a lot of points just by doing that. But it was not reported anywhere on the leaderboards. There was no something like points
interesting. For Cintranos, there was no leaderboard. Yeah, that's right.
No.
And you know what's interesting is we talked about it. I don't know if this was off camera or on camera, but we were talking about how there are differences between what you want to do for a regular free to play account and what you want to do for a challenge account. Because the challenge, you want to contribute to your team's victory. You want to get points for yourself. And sometimes that means you have to focus on things that you wouldn't do if you were just trying to build a regular free to play account. And in fact, like at the end, in the last 10 days, I probably overspent my resources in an attempt to like run you down, you know, to try to get the points. And you were probably using resources that you didn't want to use just to keep me at bay, because, you know, ultimately we were trying to win the contest. But neither one of us would have done that if we were just going to play this free to play account straightforward.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things for me is that the number of 6 stars that I think people built over time is probably more than is actually maybe healthy for a free to play account for most players. Not that you can't approach it that way. I know that my editor, whose name is Sun, did that during the Noob versus Pro challenge as well. He really focused on 6-star champions. But I think that sometimes we grow our roster too fast because we don't have the gear for all of those champions. And a lot of times, especially when it comes to legendary champions, we don't have the books for those champions. And so you can get sort of into that mid-game trap where you feel like you need to pull a new champion in order to progress, when in reality, you could focus on a champion that you currently have and just build your roster a little bit more slowly and focus a little bit more on gear. And that might actually benefit you in the long run. I don't know that that's 100% true. That's just my personal experience with it. But what do you think? Do you think that you grew more 60s because of the challenge than you would otherwise? Or do you think it actually taught you that growing 60s is the way to progress?
Moving forward beyond 90 days, so my main focus was to finish Faction Wars as soon as possible.
Get Lydia.
After the challenge ends, I had a nice interview with JS, so he was also a participant of this challenge. So
he finished first or second overall, didn't he? Yeah, second.
Right. Yeah. So we had a chat about the Faction Wars progress, and so our conclusion was do your live arena. and put your bonuses, early bonuses, not to Demon Lords, not to Hydra. Just put them to the faction wars.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So that
Okay.
was our conclusion. So on my on my current account, so which is after the challenge, so I've got this almost maxed for faction wars. So this is giving you so much additional stats, and this is so cheap. If you take a look to the faction wars, so this is level 1 upgrades, so they are pretty cheap, right?
Yeah.
So you can get those points like to level 3 just on few fights a day if you win, right? Of course.
Yeah, so that is true, where like the special dungeons are 4 times as expensive as the potion keeps and faction crypts. You know, because those are the 2 cheapest places. So that is an interesting idea. I'm not sure how I feel about that though, because one of the things about faction wars is that once you have your Lydia and once you're farming stage, 21 of each faction, like there's no growth potential. Do you know what I mean? Whereas
I've completed the faction wars in like 6-7 months.
Okay.
And only because of these bonuses. And I during my review, right, for the champions that I have, so I have still factions that I have only 2 6-stars for particular faction. Right?
I like the focus on faction crypts. Yeah, I really do like the focus on faction crypts. I like the tip. I like the idea of putting some points. I'm just not sure, I guess personally, I'll have to experiment with it, how much I would push these. But getting Lydia early on an account would be a massive boost. It took me almost, I think it took me 2 years, almost exactly, on my main account to get Lydia. And she's so valuable, even at endgame where I am now, that imagine having her in 7 months. Like that kind of changes the way the game would progress from that point on. I imagine that she has unlocked a ton of value for you in Hydra, in Chimera, probably in hard mode dungeons as well. Did you find that getting your Lydia that early just massively transformed your account?
Massively, I would say not, because at that point having 2 copy of Armans, so I was crushing everything in the game.
Yeah, that's true.
Plus Ratalos. Also got my Mitrala before the Lydia, so my roster was already strong. Like if you're looking for 5 strong champions, so I got everything at that time. So Lydia was just some kind of accomplishment just on the account.
Okay. But you were able to farm a lot of gear out of faction groups, which helped. Yeah,
and not only gear, also glyphs. So glyphs are so important. Just having like 6-star good gear, right, and putting this the speed rune with which gives you +8 speed per each gear element, right? So you got 6 of them, so you can add a lot of speed to your champions. But this is for speed example. You can add all the other stats there, so you can build your champions really nice, so they can solo dungeons later.
No, that's definitely something I promoted before on the channel, which is like faction crypts are so great, and the other thing about them is they don't take energy, right? They don't take energy, so they're just free keys every day. You should use all of them. There's no reason to hesitate, and so I like the idea of investing in some of the area bonuses a little bit to help accelerate that, and I imagine that would be beneficial. One of the things that's
use those bonuses, you need to build champions for
that's true,
right?
That's true. One of the things that's going to be interesting about this particular challenge this year is the fact that we're going to have an event dungeon open up for almost the entirety of it, because the last event dungeon was 90 days, I believe, and this is a 90-day challenge. And so this event dungeon with pinpoint gear is going to be accessible. So I do think that's going to be where most people are going to focus their time and energy if they're going to farm dungeons, right? Because you can get both accessories and gear from it, and the pinpoint gear adds that speed and accuracy that you want, just like perception gear does. So this may take a little bit of shine away from faction crypts, because you may not need as much perception gear if you're focused on the pinpoint gear. But like I said, pinpoint gear takes energy, and the perception gear does not, because you just get those, those keys every day. So I think at the bare minimum, you should still be focused on trying to do that strategy that we're talking about using your food your food champions properly, and pushing faction crypts every day. And we'll see what happens there this year, how people approach it. So it should be really interesting. Okay, Krop, we have covered a lot of ground, my friend. Are there any insights, just last question, any insights you have into other changes that may happen this year, based on, let's say, the addition of Chimera, or the changes to Hydra, or anything else that's come into or out of the game in the last year that might make this challenge different than the 2024 challenge?
Yes, there is one big thing, and this is very, very recent change to the game, which will generally come in a day. So this is market change.
Yes.
So you will be getting better gear here. So this will be a huge factor, because you can save your energy farming, right, without farming in dungeons, and you can get good probably gear here. So that's the speculation, but that's what's promising in the last patch update.
Yeah, and that's a big change coming. It's going to affect the early game, and as you progress, the market should grow with you a bit better than it has in the past, which may put a greater emphasis on the need for silver, because you're going to be buying these things with silver, and if you're not farming for them in dungeons, then you're not generating the silver from the dungeon runs. So I think silver management this year is going to be extremely important, because the worst thing in the world is going to be like, oh, you see that perfect 6-star speed piece that you need here, but it's 2.5 million silver and you have no way to get it.
Yeah.
So I do think silver management is going to be important because of that exact thing. All right, well, thanks, Krop. This has been really interesting for me to hear. I'm glad that you were still playing your 2024 challenge account. I hope that doesn't interfere with your ability to compete this year, because that would be a shame if I didn't have you to compete with this year, Krop. It would be such a shame. But yeah, so buddy, I'm looking forward to doing this again with you. Thanks for coming on the channel, everybody. If you haven't checked out Krop's channel, please do. I will put a link to it in the description of this video. Go throw him some views, maybe subscribe to his channel. He's definitely worth the watch. All right, Krop buddy, thanks for being here, man. And yeah, you have any last words?
Thank you very much for having me once again. So I'm hoping we'll have another sessions, maybe during this challenge or after.
Yeah.
To just summarize.
All right, great. All right, that is it for us today. I have been Colred. He is Kropcio. Thanks for hanging out. We will see you in another video soon.